One of the major problems that many cities face throughout the country is crime. Crime has been a recurring problem for quite some time. Unfortunately, it has continued to rise in many areas. As the years go on, statistics show that certain parts of crime continue to rise. According to www.seattle.gov, violent crimes like robberies have risen 7% in 2012 comparing to 2011. Property crimes like vehicle theft has also risen 7% in 2012 compared to 2011. Although it is noted that burglaries and a couple other crimes have decreased, there are still other crimes that are dangerous and many more crimes that people can come up with instantly, which is frightening to think about because that puts a lot of people's lives in danger. There are many different ways people can tell if they are in a crime-related area. Drug dealers seem to go along with crime. According to Rothenberg, in 2006, according to the federal date, drug-related arrests climbed to 1.89 million, which is up from 1.85 million the previous year. An indication that has been used for many years noting that a drug deal has gone down or is about to go down is when you see sneakers on an electrical line. That could represent a lot of different things, but that is one that has been known. This method has been used in many movies as well that has to do with crime. It is a bizarre concept to think about, but ask someone what he or she thinks of when they see sneakers hanging above them on an electrical line, and I guarantee some of them will associate it with drugs. Another indication of scouting out crime-related areas is when you go into poor areas and see things like trash piled up along the street. People may view it as a poor neighborhood, but that's where a lot of crime ends up happening. If someone were to go on a walk in these areas, they would find people sitting outside of their house trying to get your attention. These areas are prone for having things like shootings happen in their area. These people usually don't have a lot of money and feel that they can do whatever they want and get away with it. This could be extremely dangerous for people going into these areas, especially if you add crime into the equation. On this map, we can see that crime occurs throughout the country. What is interesting is that a lot of the crime happens in the Northeast. I think a big part of that is because of the New York area. Anyone who is to travel to New York in some of the poorer areas will instantly notice people living on the streets in crime-related areas. The abundance of trash on the streets in poor areas is also an indication that a lot of crime takes place. We also see on the news that a lot of crime-related incidents take place in the inner cities of New York. It is also interesting to see on this map that the South has the least violent crime. There are poor areas in every state, and going to school in North Carolina, I have noticed some poor areas. It makes me wonder why the South has the least violent crime. On this chart, we see numbers of crimes that happen in other countries opposed to states. It is interesting that countries are on here that people would never expect to see, leading the United States like Denmark. Although you can't see, Denmark is at the top of the list leading the countries with the most crime in the area. It shows that crime is a problem that happens throughout the world, and it really can be dangerous no matter where you live. Canada is even ahead of the United States, and we don't really view Canada as being a real bad area. Crime is something that people have to deal with everywhere, and it is unfortunate we can't figure out a good solution to get rid of it all so people don't have to be put in danger daily or ever. The next question we ask ourselves is what kind of people do we find getting arrested? It is to be said that we stereotype African American males to this type of behavior. According to the Human Rights Watch report that was provided by Rothenberg, black men are nearly 12 times as likely to be imprisoned for drug convictions as adult white men. Rothenberg also mentioned that blacks constitute 53.5% of all who entered prison for drugs. That is more than half, but it shows that the stereotype has been going on for quite some time. What we soon learn is that a lot of this crime comes from particularly suburban areas with low income. According to Rothenberg, she believes this is true because the urban street trade is more associated with violence and other crimes and impairs the quality of life. One person will say that if they were to go into one of these areas, they would find many people on the street trying to get drugs. This goes back to the idea of class. According to Witt, people who have money are able to do a lot more than people who do not. Maybe we can assume that the reason why people in the lower class sell drugs is because that is their way of earning money since they have trouble finding a steady job and also have trouble paying for their living arrangements each month. What people fail to realize is that white males are at fault for these dangerous crimes as much as black males. White males have the potential to do anything as black males, but yet they aren't being caught for nearly as much. If you read any comparisons between white and black males for arrests, black males are skyrocketing the charts for more arrests than white males. Because of stereotypes, no one has had a big say in it. It is just to be assumed that more than likely a black male got arrested for crime. What we fail to notice is that when watching the news, we are starting to see white males appearing on television a lot more these days, dealing with arrests that have to do with crime. We continue to notice that white adult males still get away with a lot more things these days as opposed to black adult males. Black males come off looking more suspicious than white males, and this is what attracts a police officer. According to Witt, he calls this police discrimination. If an officer saw a black male in a car and a white male in a car in the same parking lot, for example, he would more than likely go towards the black male. This is something that has been going on for a while now, and many people find it unfair. There is no way to fix this problem because cops have a lot of authority over people and they will charge whomever they want whenever they want. Wood also states that researchers continue to find evidence of this pattern in daily lives of African Americans and people cannot figure out a way to stop it. Many people believe that once the Supreme Court steps in, then changes could occur, when in reality we see that maybe they are not helpful after all. The Supreme Court sets rules, but people will do what they want at the end of the day. They cannot control every single person in the whole world. People will continue to get away with things. Instead of blaming the government, we should look at other alternatives. They have a lot of power, but not enough to stop all the crime in the world. They mostly focus on drugs, but that doesn't cover robberies or vehicle thefts. We need to focus more on the people in the low-income areas, which include both whites and blacks. Whites not getting away with most of the stuff they do and being punished could show that they are just not targeting one race, and that will maybe help with the crime. According to Witt, blacks often receive more severe punishments than do whites that are found guilty of the same crimes. Stricter punishments, along with treating everyone equal regardless of race, could be a possible solution to help reduce crime rates. People are always going to wonder if there will ever be a solution to all the crime that is going on. It is impossible to get rid of all of it, but there is one way to reduce it, which is by putting more public safety in these brutal areas. According to Mr. King in Rothenberg's book, he believes these low-income urban areas need improved public safety. We don't see a lot of safety in these type of areas, which allows people to do whatever they want and move freely, and sometimes that results in crime. They get away with a lot more opposed to areas that have a lot of money, and we see a lot more police there trying to guard their safety. As a viewer, we really only see police in these areas when they get a call that something is going on in the area and they are needed. The lack of police could be a possibility to why a lot more crime happens more than it should because they are not being watched. So the one question we can ask ourselves now is, what do we do next? Do we leave things the way they are now, or do we try to enforce severe punishment on whites that blacks have been receiving all along? It will take a lot more than other crime to happen for people to realize that whites getting off the hook is simply not acceptable. There will be someone who thinks whites starting to receive severe punishment is out of the blue and unfair. Meanwhile, someone else will believe that it is fair, and justice will finally begin to be served. They say that life isn't fair, and I think that is very fitting for this crime situation. If changes to occur, we can expect to see things very differently. Or will we continue to see people trying to rebel in all different types of races? That is a question that we may or may not have an answer to.